So today on the podcast, I'm overjoyed to get to spend some time with a guy I've known for a long time. It's probably since the early 2000s, I think, we met each other and played a lot of music. And we've spent a few minutes to catch up before we started recording. And I just can't wait to catch up some more and dig into his history of being one of my favorite and most fearless guitar players I've ever had the chance to work with. And just such a pleasure to welcome my friend, Mr. Steve Cunningham, to the podcast. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to see your face and to catch up and just talk for a while. So, how are things in your world today?
They're good. Today was a pretty light day, so I tried to. I've got a million guitars and lap steels, and I have this penchant for buying cheap guitars and then trying to like rewire them and upgrade the pickups, something I'm really underqualified to do. So I've been in with a soldering iron trying to figure out like things that any tech could knock out in like 5 seconds. Okay, why is this still buzzing? And that's what I've been doing today, is just sort of like, chasing my tail. But
do you find that the act of trying to figure out how to do it is as rewarding as what the finished product is? Do you like the process as much as what you finally end up with?
Rarely. I don't have a problem taking stuff to people, and I've got a really good tech that I use, but I think it's kind of shame, Brad, is what it is. Like, I kind of feel like, why, come on, I should be able to do this. And I can put pickups in and rewire stuff, but if there's any kind of issue, just and stuff that anybody with any like remedial knowledge would know, I get stuck because I don't know. I never learned the theory. I just, burned my fingers enough time to get to a point where I could,
yeah,
to actually get some sound with marginal amounts of buzzing and hum, but
it just adds to the character of the tone.
Exactly.
That's really,
yeah.
That's it. How many guitars do you have? Do you have any like an estimate of how many guitars and lap steels you own?
I mean, I sold a bunch off when I moved recently, so I probably have about 40 or 50 guitars and probably about 25, 30 lap steels.
Wow.
Now,
really?
Don't be too impressed, because I would say almost all of them are well under $1,000. I mean, so I'm not, I don't go out and buy like really nice stuff, because I just don't think I could really enjoy playing like a $5,000 guitar, because I would expect it to, cook eggs for me, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I kind of feel like if I play, like I'm looking right now at this guitar that I just put some cheap GFS kind of Dynasonic copy pickups in, and it's a cheap black SG copy that I picked up for like $175 at this local store. And because it's so cheap and kind of gnarly and everything, I can play it, and if I have an off night, I can kind of blame it on the guitar. You know what I'm saying? It's like, whereas if I'm playing like a really, really nice instrument, then I don't have any excuses. Right. So,
and I talk with a lot of guitar players on here just about the quest for tone and all of that. Where do you feel that the instrument really lies in a lot of that? Do you feel like, I mean, we talk about the amp, the instrument, any pedals, but how much of it do you think is just in your hands and in your touch is really defines what your sound and your tone is?
Yeah, I think, unless you have really crappy gear, it's 75 to 90% in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that touch. And, I learned that early on. There was a guy I grew up in Rochester, New York, and that's where I lived until I was in my late 20s before I moved down to Atlanta. And there was a guy named Louis Labello, who's great, kind of Holdsworthian, kind of John McLaughlin type guitar player. And, I worshiped this guy. He was incredible. And I got to jam with him once. And at the time, I can't remember what guitar I was playing, like a G&L guitar through one of those Roland jazz chorus amps. Mm-hmm. And I think I used like a Tom Scholz Rockman, one of those rigs. And I can't remember what he played. He played like an SG through some like real legit tube amp. And I remember during the course of the jam, I worked up I was like 17 and excuse me, Mr. Labello, you think maybe could I try out your guitar, sir? He's like, oh yeah, man. We switched instruments, and I'm thinking, great, I'm going to sound like Louis. And he played through my stuff, and it was like very profound time for me, or very profound occurrence. He sounded exactly like he did before, and when I played through his stuff, I sounded exactly like I did before, and there was literally no difference.
Yeah, it's incredible. Musicians have such a way of assuming that there is, especially as you're up and coming, that if I have the right instrument and I play through the right amp with the right strings, I'm going to sound like, well, and Guitar Player magazine kind of leads you to think that that is the way that it can work.
Yep.
And it's couldn't be further from the truth, I think,
Yeah. It certainly helps having good stuff. And what it comes down to, I think, is we spend, I don't know how it is for bassists or drummers, but, guitar players, we're a special breed, I think, when it comes to tweaking and being just, overly obsessive with that, maybe 5% that nobody in the audience hears. And even, a lot of times I would say by the time, in a recording studio, yes, in a situation like that, definitely. But when you're playing live, I think by the time it goes through the microphone and goes through the house and deals with all the different peculiarities that exist within whatever the venue is, and whatever strengths or weaknesses the sound man has, no one's going to know the difference. Whether you're doing what I do lately, since 2019, I just play through a Fractal AX8. So I said goodbye to amps. Very rarely do I use them. The only time I do is maybe a couple times a year in a gig where they don't have much of a PA. And I just, figure it's easier just to bring a little Music Man amp and my little King of Tone pedal and a volume pedal. And, or when I do fly dates, which thankfully I rarely do anymore, and they backline everything. I haven't flown with a guitar in probably 15 years.
Really?
Because I just have them backline me. Just give me a US Strat or a Tele, and I'll never complain about what it is because I hate flying with guitars so much, and I did it for so long.
It's the worst thing. I hate it. I hate
Terrible.
it. Yeah. You just the anxiety of trying to make sure everything's gonna be okay with it and all of that. Yeah, I don't blame you. It would be worth just playing an instrument you've not used.
Definitely.
To not have to deal with that.
And they backline amps, of course, and all I bring is my Analog Man King of Tone pedal, which is like the Rolls Royce of kind of 2-channel overdrive boxes that are so big, and that's my that I get my gain stages out of that. And it's great, and I kind of like going into a situation that like I played a gig in I think it was 2 years ago in Malta, and we played for the U.S. consulate. It was like a 4th of July celebration there, and of course had to fly. It was a mess. All I wanted out of that gig, I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but all I wanted was to be able to swim in the Mediterranean for 10 minutes. And I was assured I'd have that opportunity. So, okay, I'll do the gig. And the gig paid well, of course. But we got delayed in Hartsfield, the Atlanta airport, because of weather for about 7 or 8 hours. And then everything got messed up. So I had to fly into Istanbul, we're in Istanbul for a long time, flew to Rome, then flew into Malta, and had to get off the plane, basically take a bus to the hotel and go right into sound check. And they had to backline from Sicily, and there's the southern. I won't say anything. I won't say anything about the southern Italy and backline, but anyways, I had less than ideal gear, and I kind of loved it because I was kind of like, okay, what can I do differently to make this work for me? And I find a lot of times I'm more inspired in those situations than I am in a situation where I've got all my bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Because there's something about that challenge. And I think that's maybe part of what appeals to me about playing, cheaper gear is certainly I'm not going to play anything that sounds like crap, but I have a lot of guitars that don't play really, really well. And I kind of like that sometimes. I like having guitars that have to fight.
I think I think that's a great way to look at it. And like I said, you really are like the most fearless guitar player I think I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. And I always feel like you're always trying to get something out of either the instrument or the music you're playing that, you haven't tackled before. Right. I feel like you're always, you're trying to find that new thing, and that makes sense hearing you talk about doing the same thing with your gear.
Yeah. Always looking for that thing. We live for those moments and usually the moments are moments nobody else recognizes.
Yeah.
But just to have, I can look back on, the deal, man. Guys like us, who play anywhere from 150 to 200 gigs a year after year. And a lot of them are not sexy gigs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some weddings, some, the corporate gigs that pay real well. And there's always that law of diminishing returns.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I can look back on weddings I played that are totally, I can't remember stuff that happened yesterday, but I can remember moments during weddings playing over Brown Eyed Girl or something like that, where something happened. I still remember, going on this vacation with my family, went to Tybee Island, had a bunch of relatives fly down from New York, and it was great. And I had to drive back. And as soon as we got back, I had to drive up to like Hiawassee to play a wedding. Immediately, as soon as I got home, I had to load up the car, go to Hiawassee. And, I was wearing a shirt and a tie, which immediately makes me just not want to play guitar. But I forget what song it was, but I brought a lap steel because back then I'd bring a lap steel every place. And if I could play it even on one song, it was worth my while. And we were playing some, one of those throwaway songs that we all hate playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing a lap steel solo, and I still remember the feeling. And this is like close to 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And I remember just being in that zone and having that moment. And I still remember it, as well as other times that have happened since then. But, I'm a huge, and I know you are too, a huge Pat Metheny fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've read a lot of interviews with him and heard a lot of interviews with him and seen him live a bunch of times when I was younger. And I've got a funny story too about Metheny that I'll tell you later. It's might not be appropriate, but I was reading this in Guitar Player magazine. Metheny was talking about how he for a while he didn't even have an apartment, or he didn't have a house. He didn't have a place to live because he was always touring. He had an apartment in Boston with an answering machine because he was touring so much. And the interviewer asked him, well, how I think Pat was talking about just, he improvises a lot. And when you improvise, the way he put it is you're really trying to search for the truth and trying to tell the truth. And, the way I interpreted that was not playing licks or prepackaged stuff, really trying to find what's the truth of this moment and how to be honest as a player. And the interviewer asked him, well, how many times a year does that happen? And Metheny responded, maybe twice. Now at that level, he could have the worst day in the world and it's still going to be transcendent to rabble like me, but I understood that though. I could relate to that because it is, you just never know when those moments are going to hit.
And you're right. It, at least in my experience, it tends to happen in the moments that you least expect. Like playing, as I recently heard it said, those moments, not necessarily when you're selling your soul, but you're probably at least renting it,
Yeah.
I'm with you, been playing those terrible wedding gigs where, you feel like no one's listening to you at all, but there's some magic happening on the bandstand with the people around you. And, it's like, I don't care if anyone else is hearing it, but I'm glad I'm the one getting to experience this and live in this moment right now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. You never know.
Yeah.
I did a gig. I used to play with Colonel Bruce Hampton, who's, he was an illustrious kind of patriarch of the Southeastern jam band scene. And I remember we did a gig at a place. Have you ever heard of the Knitting Factory?
Yeah.
We played a gig there, and it was, Jeff Sipe on drums. I flew in to do this gig. Jimmy Herring had just started with Widespread Panic. He was playing at Radio City Music Hall, and he came over and played after he finished up there. The Campbell Brothers, who were friends of mine and from Rochester, Sacred Steel geniuses, legends. Bruce loved Sacred Steel and he loved the Campbell Brothers. He'd asked me if I could get them to come play in this gig, so I worked it out for them to be there. It was sold out show, pulled up in a limo. Everything was just right, and it was fun. It was a great gig. I had to fly back the next day to play the Airport Ramada with a little jazz, kind of little jazz trio.
Is jazz in quotes?
Heavy quotes. I mean, it's good, good players and everything. And playing for a bunch of like a conference and just a little room, you could see water stains on the paneling. You know what I'm saying? Yep. All you have to do, Airport Ramada. That tells you all you need to know. And that night, it was incredible. By the time we got to I think we did maybe 3 sets. The last set, I felt like I was playing like the best I've ever played in my life. And coming off of playing this gig that's the kind of sexy gig. Oh yeah, playing in front of people screaming after solos, and something about that. And that gig was fine. It was fine. And I think a lot of it has to do with levels of expectation, kind of what you alluded to before, which is why I try to never look forward to gigs, even doing like. When I get to do my thing, I leave the house, and I don't know how much of this is just years of conditioning, but a lot. I genuinely feel like, oh shit, man, I hope they cancel it, or I really, and I think looking back, I think I've been that way my whole life. I remember when I was in my early 20s, and I had my own band and was playing a lot, and we were pretty popular around the Rochester area. This band called The Value of X, doing a bunch of tunes I wrote, instrumental tunes. And this was during the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So, of course, it was really cool to kind of be a faux guitar hero back then, before, Nevermind by Nirvana dropped and people stopped caring about,
right.
It was no longer cool to be able to solo well, But remember, back then, all the little grungers were, during interviews, they were tripping over themselves to tell how little they practiced. Right. I don't even know how to tune a guitar. Oh yeah, well, I don't, it was so sad. But where was I going with this? Yeah, I remember even back then leaving for gigs that I was excited about and leaving the house and just feeling like I just didn't want to play. I think a lot of it was nerves back then, whereas now I think it's just genuine. I think I've sort of consciously or subconsciously learned to do that. Boy, this, I don't even like talking about this because this makes me sound like so sad and pathetic that I like have to. I have to come up with all these things.
Listen, I'm relating, as we were catching up before we started, I live in St. Louis now. We'll occasionally come back to Atlanta to play some gigs. And it fills me with such anxiety before I come back because I put so much expectation on how good I think it's going to be to get to play that anything less than amazing feels like a supreme letdown. So I get what you're saying. It's like I put a lot of, and some of it is pressure on myself. And I don't know how much of that is how you felt about it, but putting a lot of pressure on myself and just that I'm going to make it worth everyone's time that I'm showing up to do it.
Yeah, I don't know how universal these feelings are, but I know I think there are so many various degrees of what we're talking about. I know it used to be, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself and maybe be nervous about playing. But I'd say definitely over the last 10, 20 years, 15 years, I don't know. Definitely over the last 10 years, I really appreciate playing guitar. So even playing like, because a lot of, for people listening, guys like me and Brad, there's a certain amount of kind of like an affectation of bitterness. Don't get me wrong. There's true bitterness too. I mean, there's definitely in the heart of our souls. There's a lot of just why did we do this? But but a lot of it is it's fun. It's fun to kind of like, you play into it. In reality, I can't say I've always been grateful, but I think for most of my career as a player, I've been really grateful. And of course, as I get older, the fact that I've been able to kind of do what I wanted to do when I started playing guitar, which was when I was 14, I knew what I wanted to do. And I worked, when I say I worked hard, I can't say I worked hard. I played a lot.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing a lot of different styles not knowing that I was really kind of training myself to do what I do, which is to be able to play a lot of different styles and do a lot of different things, which is great. I mean, I love playing, going and playing like a, kind of a country bluegrassy type gig. And just a couple nights ago, I played with a 90s hip hop rap group, like a tribute band, doing all like Biggie and, Tupac and Salt and Pepper and stuff like that. And and I play with these guys maybe just a few times a year. Great band in Atlanta called No Diggity. And I don't listen to that music, but I love playing it.
Yeah.
Just like there's music I love listening to that I don't really enjoy playing. Mm-hmm. I love Genesis, but I don't know. I've never really had much of a chance to play Genesis, but when I have, playing it doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
But listening to it does, and vice versa. But anyways, I do enjoy playing. In most situations I'm in, I really, really enjoy it. But like the next day, we were talking before about playing church services, and I did it for a long, long time and stopped, several years ago. But I was asked to play at this little church in I think it's not Lithonia. It's kind of Lithonia, Decatur in that area, southeast Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a little gospel church, Black Pentecostal church. And I'm big into the sacred steel stuff. And I brought a lap steel and brought an electric, and it was just a B3 player who was a monster, and a drummer who was a monster. And it was so much fun. And I did that for a long time, playing black gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's, you and I have done a lot of the CCM stuff where it's not encouraged at all to be expressive.
No, the closer you can play it to exactly what's on the recording is encouraged.
Yes. And playing in most of the gospel situations that I've been in, it's actually really, there's a premium put on self-expression, sometimes to the point where it can be too much. I mean, some of these dudes I've played in bands with, some like these dudes who are like, they're all just badass players. And it turns into almost like a fusion thing. Anytime the pastor's taking a breath, there's like, and then the pastor will say, and then, and then the bass player will go, you know what I'm saying? And after a while, I know the pastors would always really like me because because I would flow with them instead of just, and it's not because I'm any better or anything. It's just that I was older than most of these guys. If I was 20 and playing that, I would have been doing two-handed tapping and
right.
Floyd Rose whammy bar dive bombs. Yeah, so it's that the variety of playing all these different things and playing with different artists. It's so rewarding, and being in situations that are somewhat stringent. I work a lot with. Were you ever hip to the Home by Dark series here in Alpharetta?
Yeah, I've never. I think I played with. Does Jimmy Casto do that gig?
Jimmy's the man.
Okay,
yes.
I've played with Jimmy a couple of times, not I think at a church gig, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But like I would love to sing with him playing drums because he gets it, right? He just he's such a wonderful musician. So yeah, I'm hip to that thing that you guys do. If you were to explain it to anyone that doesn't know what it is, how would you put it into words?
Well, it's a series, and I think this is the 19th year that Jimmy has been doing it. And there's basically a bunch of us that have been doing it for a long time. Carol and Vanessa Ford, I don't know if you ever worked with them.
No, I didn't.
Couple, they're great. There's sisters have been singing together their whole lives. A lot of gospel, a lot of everything. Incredible singers. They're background singers. Lately, it's been John Carrozza.
Oh yeah,
who's been playing keyboards. Mike Shetler has been playing bass for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You probably, I don't know if you remember Mike. And then I play guitar and lap steel and mandolin and whatever else. And those and it's great. We bring in their different artists every from I think it's from pretty much from April to October. There are a couple different venues in Alpharetta, two different concert series, all under the Home by Dark umbrella, where different artists come in, and it's guys like Tony Orada.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Sims.
Oh yeah.
Who, wrote If I Could Change the World.
Yeah.
And I've actually gotten to do some, Tommy and I really kind of clicked, and he's brought me in on some of his solo gigs we've done duo gigs together.
Oh, wow.
And, and it's funny because I guess he's known primarily as a bassist.
Yeah.
I've never once heard him play bass. When we play, he plays like this. I think we're similar in the sense that his first Home by Dark gig, he stopped by a music store on the way to the gig and bought like a not super cheap, but brought like a kind of an off-brand resonator guitar.
Really?
And that's the guitar he plays when we do these shows. Yeah. So drives the sound man nuts because because there's no pickup built into it.
Right.
And we got a great sound man. This guy. Do you know Jared Knabel?
Yes, I do know Jared.
He's just unbelievable mixer, audio guy. But anyway, so guys like that, Marsha Ramirez, just and then some younger, Kashona Williams or Kashona. I can't remember her last name because she just goes by Kashona. The Young Fables, a group out of Nashville, but it's not. A lot of people think Nashville, it's all country stuff. There's a fair amount of country music, and then stuff that has the kind of country flavor. There's a lot of stuff that's a lot of like we just had Nathan Angelo and there's another guy that does this really well. His name will come to me, but guys who will mix. They'll do kind of country-ish type stuff, but with a lot of R&B and soul kind of influence in there too. And that's a lot of fun. But so every week or every week that we do that, we've kind of cut back to just two a month because it was kind of we tried doing more and it kind of got to be a little bit much because every time each artist we're learning new music.
Right.
But some of those situations there's not a lot of glorious guitar solos. And I've learned to of course when I first started doing it I was aghast. I was like, what do you mean I'm not soloing 32 bars in every song? What kind of skullduggery is this? But I've really learned to kind of really enjoy. One of the phrases I hate more than anything else in our business is serve the song. I despise that, but I understand it, and I think I fought it for so long because I just hated being preached to. Oh no, you must serve the song, Steve. You have to serve the song. I'm like, bitch, let the song serve me. You know what I'm saying? But I do understand that, I'm kind of hip to the joy in that, and just being able to just play a couple notes here and there, and finding those right 2 or 3 notes, and maybe laying out. Man, I mean, that's another thing that I've really become hip to over the past 8 or 10 years is just not playing. And I think playing lap steel had a lot to do with that because I recognized early on that a lap steel is not necessarily. And I think this is true of just steel guitar in general, or really anything, is, absence makes the heart grow fonder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you play a nice little lick, you don't have to keep repeating yourself. Just lay out and come back in again. No one's there. You're not going to get paid any less. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the flip side of absence makes the heart grow fonder is familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case. I know I've been guilty of that. Probably hundreds, if not thousands of times as a guitar player and as a lap steel player. And I probably still am, just feeling compelled to play a lot of notes.
Did you have, and I say it on here a lot, is that, maturity and experience and perspective, knowing when to use the pencil and knowing when to use the eraser, right? And did you have some particular experiences that led to this shift, or was it just something was it working with more singer-songwriters? Do you think that contributed to it? What led you to kind of make the shift over the past years?
I think it's, I still do a fair amount of session work. I used to do a lot of session. And I think having producers on a regular basis, I would do a first pass. And the majority of the time, they would say, man, that sounds great. Now give me another one and play a quarter as much. Here, and it probably took me 50 times of hearing that to actually think, oh, maybe that's something that transcends just these studio walls here, And another thing that helps is I've gone through phases where I've recorded myself a lot. And certainly since the advent of cell phones and being able to get good voice, recorder cell phones, voice recorder apps with good, microphones and to be able to get decent live recordings, just setting a phone on the floor. I listen back, and I do listen back sort of like a team watching film Monday morning, after a Sunday game. And I listen almost to a fault. I listen back and I want to listen to my tones. I want to listen to how well maybe I played or how well I didn't play. And I want to hear how much I'm fitting in to the music, because there is that tendency sometimes to, let's just say it took me quite a while to realize that it's not necessarily a good thing to do fills while the singer's singing. And I think I honestly, it sounds like I'm joking. I think I did that for certainly all of my teens in probably a lot of my 20s and maybe more of my 30s than I'd like to admit, where I was still, my head it wasn't in the right space. I was still thinking too much like a guitar player, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever, instrument I was playing. And I don't remember ever getting reprimanded for it, but I'm sure I'm sure there were some conversations that's happening. I mean, how could there not be? Because I would notice, I'd listen back to recordings and think, yeah, dude, maybe. I remember I was doing this this album. Do you remember Gwen Hughes?
Yeah.
Yeah, good friend of mine that I used to play with a lot, and she has a pretty good catalog of stuff, and I played on a lot of her stuff. And I remember that she had a song that I was playing a lap steel solo on, and she going, as singers do sometimes, going into a solo section, they'll do like a prolonged vocal fill. And I gave her a lot of shit for like, why are you singing where my solo is going to happen? You know what I mean? And I wasn't kidding. This is a long time ago. But whereas it's funny, I did a gig. I have my little Cunning trio that I've been doing, and I don't know why it took me so long to do this, but I've got a really good band of guys. Rob Henson, great upright player, and Ganesh Girijaira, who's a great drummer and a great singer. And we do, and we there's this great venue 10 minutes from my house called Moonshadow Tavern.
Oh yeah, I played there a few times. Yeah, it's
really turning into a really hot music venue. They really they got rid of smoking and they really upgraded their sound and lights. And I've got like a monthly gig that I play there. And we mix up instruments. We'll do like Weather Report, and then we'll do Johnny Cash, and we'll do Zeppelin, and we'll do Carpenters. With great. Like just hollow body distorted feedbacking guitar. It's basically anything I want to do, we can do. And we've got this great singer that comes in, this girl Bex, who I work with in another band, and she comes in and sings a few songs. And we were doing a song, and this newer kind of R&B song called "The Best Part," and great changes, real nice song. And there, of course, I insert a guitar solo in there because it's my gig. And she went into what's the solo section. She did like an ad lib thing, and I didn't get pissed off. So right there, that's maturity right there.
That's
Brad.
Growth, Steve. I'm so proud of you.
That's growth. I remember actually thinking it was cool that she did it, but only because I could solo for as long as I want. So if she was taking up my precious 16 bars, then of course I would have been like, okay, come on. Or I would have like, done something, probably something not too mature. I am kind of like tongue in cheek about this. I'm sort of telling the truth, but it's not as serious as it sounds. So people thinking I'm a dick or anything.
Do you find that, like in this trio, and I know both of those guys, do you find that playing with people that either sing or play with good singers tend to approach the material differently than maybe just straight instrumentalists that understand that getting out of the way is the best thing that they can do at that given moment?
Yeah, I think that does. I mean, if you're a working musician, all kidding aside, you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been, that's something you have to accept, that you're not playing Return to Forever. You know what I mean? Or you're not playing Steve Vai stuff. You're playing behind a singer. So of course, that's what people are listening to.
Yeah.
That's really, and that's really the truth. I mean, most people, well, I don't know if it's fair to say most people, but I don't think the average music listener is capable of really discerning some of the stuff that we would. I remember when I remember the point when I was like 14 or 15 and I was listening to the radio and all of a sudden I realized, hey, I can pick out like this piano part and I can hear what the bass is doing. And this is after maybe, 8 or 9 months of playing guitar. And I think what I learned from that is prior to that, I'm not so sure that I think I was hearing the compilation of stuff. And if you had taken away the piano or the bass, I would notice it was missing, but I wasn't necessarily able to focus in on that thing. I was going for whatever. If the singer's singing, you're hearing the singer. Mm-hmm. If it's in the air tonight, and okay, yeah, you're going to cue in on that drum fill. But it's going to be the low hanging fruit.
Right.
So, yeah, but I do think that there's a sensitivity that I want to say it comes with age, but I've played with a lot of really good younger players that have that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if maybe it's because they came up during a time. I mean, I came up during the 80s when excess was, guitar was just getting to a point where it was absurd.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. Every song had to have this guitar solo, even like the most touching ballad. Of course, there were none of those. And, the Poison version of a touching ballad
right.
would have to have some feats of strength during a guitar solo. And looking back, it's like, yeah, that whole, I equate Nevermind by Nirvana dropping is sort of like the equivalent of the storming of the Bastille, with the French Revolution. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where that kind of was like, if you were a shredder player, you'd have to, it was basically, it's like the musical guillotine. You were just mocked and ridiculed and spat upon.
And you and I've talked about this a lot over the years. I mean, we both have such a soft spot in our heart for like really old traditional country music. And I grew up hearing it and playing a lot of it in my formative years as a musician. And I'm so thankful having that time to understand there's beauty in whole notes, and that it's okay to just play a note and let it sustain through a bar and not feel like you have to fill up the space. It's like having a conversation with someone that can't handle silence in a conversation and always has to fill it up. Mm-hmm. I do think that there's a tendency for musicians to do that as well. It's like, oh, there's space in the bar. I should probably do something to make sure that there's not just a long tone coming out from the band,
Yeah. It's funny. I just had earlier today, I had, I teach a lot of private lessons, and I've been doing a lot of, most of my lessons are online now. And I was doing a lesson with a student of mine in England who's becoming a really good lap steel player, playing in C6. And I was trying to get it. We were talking about just playing a chord and then finding a couple notes to play. And I think what you described a second ago, as far as like letting the whole note ring, I think another take on that is the insecurity. I remember reading an interview with Stevie Ray Vaughan where they were talking about the Live at Carnegie Hall album, and he just rips on it. And he said he didn't really care. He didn't care for his performance on that. He said he was very insecure, and that's why he played a lot of notes. Because if you're insecure, it's kind of like people that just keep yapping and yapping because I do that all the time. And I do that on my instrument all the time. Not as much as I used to, because I try to, hopefully I kind of nip it in the bud, but I'm sure it happens. Finding, I think going back to the Metheny quote about finding the truth, or, about speaking the truth. Sometimes just playing that note can be everything, that whole note. What are you doing with it? How can you, if you're a bass player playing a whole note, there's not like a ton of things you can do, but there are certainly things you can do depending on the tone you have, and just even the least little bit of vibrato, because the bass is so foundational. Anything you do is going to be a fundamental part of what's happening musically.
Yeah.
More so, I'd say as a bass, more so than a guitar, but it's apples and oranges, right? A guitar player or a steel player. When I teach, I'm telling my students about one of the things I've been. Am I going too much all over the place, Brad?
No, I love it.
Okay, because I feel kind of ADD. About 10 years ago, I've always had students ask me about how do you play soulfully, or I'd have people ask me, just out on gigs, how, because I'd like to think that I have a little bit of soul in my playing, or expression, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times when you ask those questions, it turns into like a who's on first type thing where, well, you just got to really get into it. Okay, well, how do you get into it? Well, I mean, you just got to really feel the notes you're playing. Well, how do you feel the notes you're playing? We got to play with soul. It's like, okay, thanks, and it got me thinking about, okay, I really got into trying to quantify it, because we know what soul is, even though it is kind of like it's a very subjective term.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people like you or me, or a lot of the people that we know, people who are good musicians. Not that you have to be a good musician to recognize this quality, but we know soul when we hear it. And it's not necessarily, doesn't mean it's soul music. Listening to Hank Sr., good God. Right. There's some deep soul, or Johnny Cash, you know what I mean? So I really, it got me thinking about, okay, well, vibrato. Okay, vibrato, there's speed and width. And I started thinking about imaginary, like thinking of like a, guitar player, thinking of like 1 to 10 or 0 to 10. So when I would talk to students, so we'd talk about, okay, let's talk about your vibrato. And I would get them thinking about their speed and then the width, the amount of modulation. Mm-hmm. And I would call out numbers. I'd say, okay, give me a 7 in speed, 2 in width. The width being literal. How far are you moving the string?
Yeah.
And then there are things like staccato versus legato, and all of the variations on that. If you think of 10 being just like staccato to the point where you don't even hear it, and then a 1 being just like, oh, you know what I mean? There's the degree of ghost notes that you play. Mm-hmm. Ghost notes are huge. And then, of course, dynamics. And the more I got into it, the more I realized that how much improvisation is like what we're doing now, speaking. It's the exact, I can't think of a closer parallel, non-musical parallel. And I wouldn't even say non-musical. I think speech has music to it. And we don't realize we're doing it, but we're constantly modulating our pitches. And, it's funny. That's the reason why I try not to communicate too much by text or email. If it's more than just like yes or no, or 3 p.m. load in, you know what I mean? Because I want people to hear my voice, because I don't want to be misunderstood.
Right.
And, you accent a word differently or use a certain pitch. You could write something. And this is why social media is such a mess, because it's all of these words that you could construe as angry if you're an angry person.
It's all open to interpretation, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
So music's like that too. You can learn a lot about how to play music by just listening to us talk, listening to yourself talk, watching TV, and just really paying attention to language and thinking about, if music is emotion, think about how you convey irony, or how you convey sympathy or anger or surprise by using musical values to how we speak. Hey, I told you to get out of there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or like, hey, it's okay. Or, oh yeah. In fact, I was just during my hip hop gig the other night, one of the rappers, we were talking about backhanded compliments. And about how people can say, one of the guys, he's also, one of the rappers is also a great trumpet player. He's a really good jazz player. And he's talking about jazz musicians, how like jazz musicians are really notorious for giving, backhanded compliments. Say, yeah, so, how was so-and-so? Oh yeah, no, he was really good. And what is
that inflection says everything, right?
It says everything you need to know. There's a big however coming right after that. And, you play a phrase, da-da-da-da-da. Now, it might not mean literally the same thing it means, but it means something, and that's why there's music. I think there's a Miles quote. I mean, there's so many great Miles quotes, but about music. I'm just going to butcher the quote, but essentially it was that music is to say the things that you can't say with words.
Yeah,
and we know that. I don't think I knew it prior. You get to a point where you understand the language, and you listen to John Coltrane, or Eric Johnson, or whoever you might be into, Don Helms, who played steel with with Hank, and they're saying things just as much as the singers are.
Yeah.
There's and maybe more so when they're soloing, because that's their time to sing, to speak. And these things, they make a difference. And as far as the quantity of notes, I think when you discover that, you realize, like, it took me having bam, bam, hit myself over the head for decades to or having maybe other people would to whatever degree I may or may not have been overplaying over the years. But when you really get hip to that stuff, it's like, oh, you don't need to play a lot. In fact, it kind of ruins it sometimes when you do. If you can just go into, a nice slide, and you have to be, like I was telling my student earlier, you have to believe it. You have to, like, this guy is good. The student of mine he's a good player, but he hasn't played in bands or anything like that. And he's not like a full, he has a day job and everything, but you have to take the resources you have, which is all the stuff, we've been working on for years. And now you have to play an E minor chord, but you have to think it's beautiful. You can't just play it and then be self-conscious because nothing else happening, or you have to really be able to play a note and really believe that it's the most important thing happening in the world.
Yeah.
And when I play, like if I was to pick up a guitar, maybe not right now, but when I pick up and play, like here in my house, I'll play a couple notes and I'm so invested in those notes. I'm not trying to be. It's just like I'd like to think I've learned to be. And sometimes on a gig, I'm not, because I'm distracted by all these other things. And I'm also distracted by my ego telling me, oh, there's some guitar players out there. I need to do the prerequisite, whatever kind of chops that I think I might have.
Feel more present on the bandstand now than you were 20 years ago, or do you think it's about the same now that you're maybe kind of taking a step back a little bit and observing what's going on around you, and then kind of just adding in a little bit here and there, maybe adding less than you did before? Do you find that you're more present in the moment than you were before?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. That's a great question. I think 20 years ago, I was probably still trying to impress people. Mm-hmm. Or feeling like I needed to flex. You know what I mean? And I feel like now, I don't know if present is the word, but I think I feel more comfortable in my musical skin.
Yeah.
Now the present thing, that is such an important thing. And that's always been the hardest thing, is to be present. And I'll say this, and this ties in with stuff we were talking about earlier. I still, for gigs that I care about, which really is a pretty good percentage of them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I record myself and I'll listen back sometimes I'll listen back to the whole thing, and I find that the correlation between how things feel, because I remember feelings, the correlation between how they felt and how they sound, there's is pretty much non-existent. My trio gigs, I leave most of those, and we've been getting we get good crowds out and they're into the music and stuff. I still always feel like I leave them feeling like, I played okay. And what happens is there's a bunch of people that stream these. Mm-hmm. So I'll get home. Sometimes as soon as I get home, I'll go and I'll put on the Facebook thing and I'll watch a couple minutes. And it doesn't take long to realize, oh, okay, no, that was good. Okay, that was good. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away. If it hasn't by now, I'm not sure it will. There are times where I think I've played really well, and if I'll see a video of it, be like, okay, yeah, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as it felt.
Yeah.
Now there are times that that feel good, and they I think they tend to they are pretty good. But for me, and maybe this is that there's probably some deep psychological reason I need to do this, but I kind of feel like sometimes I enjoy listening back to a recording than I do actually playing it. And I don't think that's good. I think that can be kind of unhealthy. I try to, of course I try to be present, but again, there's just, playing the Home by Dark shows, there's a lot of responsibility because we have 2 artists every night, and I've got, charts that I try to keep on the down low because I hate the way it looks having music stands. And I'm not tech savvy enough to have like a tablet or anything with, I haven't figured that out yet. For like the charts that I need, which have a little tablature here, a little rhythm written in here, bunch of chord changes, stuff that anybody else would look at and say, what the hell is this guy? It's like, I think I'm a serial killer or something. But I'm like having to, I'm conscious. It's funny. I'm conscious of like, I want it to be a good visual performance. You know what I mean? I don't want to just be like a guy, Poindexter with my glasses down here looking at a chart, like this the whole time. But, so I think there are things that happen. Basically, I think guys like you or me, and guys we play with, over years of doing this, you just develop instincts and you learn to trust those instincts. And the bottom line for me is I know on a gig that I'm never going to suck. I used to think I sucked on gigs, not really even not that long ago, but I've learned that, and of course sucking is like other things, it's a subjective term. But I kind of feel like even if it feels terrible, from playing guitar for 46 years or whatever it's been, I have enough skill as a player to be able to play, and it's not going to suck. Yeah. And that makes me, that I think has alleviated a lot of the stress or nervousness that I used to have before when I'd really worry about sucking. Mm-hmm. Then the other thing is just letting yourself be yourself.
Yeah, I'm with you. And some of it for me has been, sobriety. I've been sober for about 8 months now.
Nice.
But I also think that as I'm getting older and, time is passing, and I do have a lot of regrets that I didn't give my all or show up with the best attitude I could have on as many gigs as I did. And I feel like I wasted a lot of years of being a musician, just kind of, I don't want to say going through the motions of it, but I think you know what I mean, where I should have, if I could go back and talk to my previous self, I would say, don't waste these opportunities, because time goes by quickly and you're going to regret not savoring these moments,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of, joking around earlier, semi-joking about bitterness and the bitter musician kind of syndrome. Mm-hmm. I think for anybody creative, and I'm sure this applies to non-creatives too, but music is such a, it's definitely in the top 2 or 3 list of the best things in life. And so there's this idealism about music. And when you're just stupid enough to decide you're going to do it for a living, that you're forced to deal with, like, okay, your idealism gets thrown aside. We're kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be great to play all this music I've been listening to, and to make a living, you have to do things, bad things,
embarrassing things. Yeah,
but here's the thing, though. If you can be subjective about it, which we can't at the young age, all of those times that you're talking about, and I certainly know what you're talking about, going with just a crappy attitude, and they're all great opportunities.
Yeah.
Every time you go to play, it doesn't matter how horrible the situation is, because you don't know when it's going to hit, when the magic's going to hit. Mm-hmm. And you have to be ready. You have to be freaking vigilant, because it's never going to hit you when you think it is. It's never going to happen on the sexy gig.
It never is. And there have been many times where I showed up with a terrible attitude, and that's the night the magic did happen. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I am pleasantly surprised by how wonderful this is.
Yeah. Do you feel like did that do something did that kind of fight the anger, as far as like maybe the next gig you showed up, were you maybe a little bit more open to that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say that part of it is that I think for me, a lot of the attitude that I had was that I felt like I was missing out on a lot of the rest of my life when I would go play music. Mm-hmm. And I think some of my attitude was that maybe I didn't want to leave the house, some of that. So I do think that bled into it. But yeah, I do think, and I know you feel the same way as I do. I mean, some of the best friends I have in the world, I know because of playing music, right? Mm-hmm. That I would have never met otherwise had it not been for that. So for that alone, it's the greatest gift I've ever been given, is to get to play music with people like you and call you my friend, So if anything, yeah, it did change my mindset, getting to have those moments, and then just getting to spend time with my friends, man. I mean, what an unbelievable thing that we've gotten to do over the years,
Yeah, we had you and I had a good run over at that, what is it, First Baptist of Alpharetta? Mm-hmm. We joked about how we didn't have an MD for a long time, and how smoothly it was running on its own. And
then what happens, right?
God. Are you an Office fan?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you remember when who was the actor from Misery? The woman,
Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates. Remember when she was in it?
When Joe was her character.
Joe, right? Yeah. And remember, they didn't have an office manager for a while. And Jim's at his desk and the phone rings, and you don't hear her side of the conversation, But you hear her say, "Oh," you hear Jim replying and saying, "You know what? I appreciate the offer, but I just think everything is running so smooth as it is now. I really think I just don't, this everything's just going great. I just don't want to mess with it." Yeah, but thank you. As soon as he hangs up, Dwight's phone rings.
Right.
Anyways, that makes me think of that situation. It was just so smooth.
Yeah, man. And they would bring in like these guys from Nashville. They would plop down some charts. We wouldn't do a midweek, and we would just show up, and everyone would listen and just do our thing. And these worship leaders, they were all so happy with it and we were happy with it because we weren't being micromanaged on the bandstand, and it's and that stuff happens everywhere, but it does happen a lot in that environment though too. Maybe, and in my experience, probably more than other places.
Yeah, man. It's but we had kind of to your last comment about just meeting people and a lot of our friends. Makes sense. You're friends with hopefully people you work with a lot.
Yeah.
You have at least good, they become at least good acquaintances, if not friends. But man, I'm sure we sure had a lot of laughs and had some good, musical moments.
Absolutely.
When we got to do our thing, and it's funny how I think people enjoy that and people feel that. And then you bring in some draconian kind of like, no, this has to be done this way, and sucks the joy out of it. And people can tell.
And that's it. We talked about the truth, and I think for me, just coming from a place of honesty as a player or a singer, not a collection of licks or whatever, just being honest with who I'm playing with and honest to who I'm playing for. People have a good BS meter for stuff like that, and they know when it's self-serving and not, trying to be the best thing that you can be to collectively, with who you're working with, and yeah.
It's funny that playing, and maybe this is maybe a little bit of a segue from what you're saying, but people's like BS meters, the comment that probably I hear, how, if you're a musician, you play a show, people, usually, it's not uncommon to get some compliments, right? And maybe as much is I hear compliments, the thing I hear, and in a way I like this maybe even more than and just individual compliments about my whatever musicianship is this, man, you really look like you're having fun up there. And people want to see that.
Yeah.
And people can tell, they can tell if it's genuine or not. And I think that's so much more important than musicianship. Really, if you really look at this as what this is, what do we do? We're entertained.
Yeah.
That's what music is. It's entertainment. Not to devalue it. It's special and it's beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's to we could say that, yeah, if we listen to whoever we listen to that really gets to us, maybe we don't think of that as entertainment. It's more kind of like lifeblood or whatever. But being like when I play, just different situations I play in, I try to be more and more conscious of, I would watch videos of myself and notice and I'm not like mad or anything, but like a lot of times I seemingly have this scowl on my face. And I remember a church I used to play at where the pastor was talking about your countenance, how important that is. And that always stuck with me, not just in life. It's like, wow, how many times I'll speak for myself. There have been a lot of times I've misjudged people for years. So this guy's a jerk because maybe he's having a bad day, or maybe his face just doesn't naturally have those muscles that go. And I think a lot of people assume the worst. And if you can have a smile on your face, as long as it doesn't look like you just, got, what I mean? Like a genuine, like you're happy to be there, smile.
Right.
I think, and just in general, that's a good thing. But I think if you're playing music, not that you have to be smiling all the time, but you want to convey that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that, I think, for guys like us, is to really be doing it.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago that I can't act. Like, I can't pretend. I'm horrible at that.
I'm with you.
Man, I did this. I did this. I don't know when this was, a while back. There was this movie called Joyful Noise
Yeah.
with Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah, and I was in that movie with. I was in Kirk Franklin's band.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Who's Kirk Franklin, this huge gospel guy, and we were at the Fred amphitheater in Peachtree Corners, and they had like 2,000 extras out in the sun, like wearing all these, like wearing, just a bunch of different, not just wearing jeans and t-shirts, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we shot this scene, this one song, we shot it we did probably 50 takes so that they could get all these different angles. And when it came time, they went through and all these different angles, and then they would go through, we'd do it again. And we would do it once and have a close up on the keyboardist, close up on the horns, close up on the bass. They came to me and I was sweating and my glasses are like going down like that. And plus I just don't have like, I could never be an actor because I would just be so all awkward and lurchy. And they didn't use any of my close ups because I think they got to the cutting room floor and said, yeah, this guy's a train wreck, like this. but it's to conveying that kind of energy. And we've both been those people. We've both been the curmudgeons, but playing with people that are dead inside. When I was younger, I remember when I first moved here and was doing a lot of gigs, I remember sometimes playing with some of these, they tended to be guys that were a lot older than me. It's back when I was in my, early 30s, maybe mid 30s. And these guys that just there's no joy, there's no eye contact, nothing at all. And it's like, man, I saw that really made me think about, like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And I was very conscious of it in them and how it felt for me. It made playing not fun for me. Yeah. Because I felt almost like by trying, I'm just going to I'm pissing these guys off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, it's good to get even visual feedback on the bandstand from who you're playing with, that if they're digging what you're doing and if they're just kind of blank stare, you probably start to play a little defensively because you're like, I don't know if what I'm doing is working in this situation or not, and it's hard to have trust in yourself if you can't gauge if these crotchety dudes are not are not, showing any sort of emotion about what's happening,
No, that's a great point. How, especially if it's a newer situation and no one's telling you the rules, if there are rules, and a little positive reinforcement goes a long way. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, just even a look, and like, and I've been in bands where we've had a sub, and I would go out of my way to give them some eye contact, like, what you're doing is great, because that helps everyone relax, right? Yeah, and just feel more in that moment,
Yeah, and I kind of think we need more so maybe on some gigs than others, depending on how much improv there is, or having permission. That for me is always a big thing. And I think a lot of it is sort of like, from being a professional musician and being a studio musician for so long, you can get institutionalized, like dudes who serve 30 years in prison and they still have to go to the bathroom at 5:30 every morning, on the nose, it's and just getting permission that, hey, it's okay to go here, or it's okay to do this, because otherwise there's that part in me that will kind of play more conservatively than I need to. Mm-hmm. And I'll get guys finally saying, no, you can open up a lot more than this. I'm like, really? You sure? And I'm still like, I don't believe them. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's like Lucy with the football.
Right. Don't you know who I am?
I will say that I remember a formative experience for me was playing. This was playing with Gwen Hughes. Late '90s. It was they call it the Oyster Fest. Remember in Buckhead?
Yeah.
And it was an outdoor thing. And I remember she had this kind of low key. It wasn't a big band, but there were probably like 3 or 4 horns and bass, drums, guitar, keyboards. And I was the guitar player. And it was all these heavy jazz cats. Heavy jazz cats. And it was like, I remember it was like 30 degrees out. The wind was blowing. It was freezing. And I remember I can't remember what song it was, but everybody took a solo on this one song. It might have been Caravan or I don't know. And these guys, and for some reason, I don't know why she had me go last, but I think a lot of times the rhythm section guys go last for solos. These horn players are like, just bebopping all over the place. I'm not a bebop player, man. I'm an okay fake jazz player. You know what I'm talking about. When all the rock guys think you're a jazz player and the jazz guys think you're a rock player, and they're all wrong. But and monster after monster soloing. While they're soloing, I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do? And I made a decision, and then piano player solos, just killing. Guitar solo. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to play something I would play if this was a concert or like a music I'm used to playing. If it was more of like a groovy type thing, whatever. And I just kind of played. I didn't try to play bebop lines because the worst thing I could have done is to try to be an imposter speaking that language that these guys spoke better than I'll ever be able to speak it. So I decided, hey, I'm just gonna if I'm going down, I'm gonna go down swinging, So I just kind of did my thing and played some funky kind of stuff, and they all loved it, or they seem to. And I think it was because they're not used to hearing that language.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were falling over themselves to get my card for me to play on their straight ahead gigs, but I think they appreciated the honesty.
Yeah.
Man, I did this tour. I think we knew. I think you knew when I did this. I went over to Europe for about a month with remember Adam Nitty?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Adam and Marco Miniman.
Yeah,
great drummer. And it was just the three of us playing Adam's tunes, which great. Oh my God, Adam's stuff's incredible, and it's all bass, guitar, drums, keyboards, and sax. So I'm kind of on the hook for the sax, keyboard, and guitar parts. And a lot of this stuff, I've never been like those guys. I'm an infant compared to those guys when it comes to like chops and just overall musicianships. These guys are just and the same thing, the exact same thing when I was playing a lot with Adam and Sonny Emery, where I always felt like in a way I was the imposter, but I learned to kind of be, let me be the guy instead of, I'm not going to try flounder around trying to be something I'm not. So let me be the guy that's, hey, let me play a little lap steel here. And I'll maybe lock in maybe earthier grooves or play things that are a little bit like not feeling like I have to, like these are going to be licks that are going to be transcribed in Guitar Player Magazine.
Yeah.
And all of these things I'm describing are all like kind of different turning points that kind of, I guess, gradually made me more comfortable, see the glass as being half full as far as like focusing on all the things that I can't do, which are just millions of things.
Well, and let me say this too. Well, first of all, you were on the gig, so obviously you brought something to the band that Adam, being the guy who hired you, he knew what you could do. But I would also say that, at least for me, some very dangerous territory that I would find myself in is spending more time trying to either impress the people I was on stage with, or trying to be something that I probably either wasn't, or something that I didn't need to be. Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, yes, totally.
And it's such dangerous territory to be in as a musician. At least it was for me.
I think almost all of us have experienced that a lot. I can't imagine otherwise.
Yeah.
Just the way insecurity manifests itself in live music situations. Yeah, it can be. It's funny when I can look back, and this goes across the board. It goes to gigs that I would be angry on, and it goes to gigs where I would feel just like insecure. Sessions, I always used to feel like I was like an undercover spy. Like if they find out who I really am, they're going to execute me on the spot. I never felt like I belonged. but I still got the call. So I should have been smart enough to realize, okay, dummy, but it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a long time to overcome those feelings.
Yeah.
Some of the thoughts that you have,
Oh yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
holy cow. That's like just real life stuff, man. It's like some of the things, and I'm not to say like I'm cured or anything, but I remember driving almost any time I would drive, it was either to a gig or from a gig, or to a session, from a session to a music store. You know what I'm saying? Driving on 285, the thoughts I would have in my head, like if I'm driving like an hour and a half to a gig, driving through traffic, homicidal, horrible, dark thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And any situation, playing music, giving in to that stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do, like you alluded to this earlier, about it's kind of before you really learn who you really are.
Yeah.
You have to kind of go through that, and you have to find a way to navigate that, and hopefully understand that even just finding a way to be happier. And that makes a difference. If you're on stage and not everything has to be, I think there's a lot of pressure sometimes that there's supposed to be this constant joy. And again, the word joy, what does that really mean? I mean, I think the word tends to imply this overt gushing over type of thing. And a lot of times you're just like hunkered down. I don't know if joy is the right word, but there's like a strong, it's like doing any kind of task that requires concentration.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong sense of satisfaction that you can't really enjoy at that moment because you're so busy performing. But there's I can't think of a synonym right now, but there's a strong sense of this is who your essence is.
Yeah.
At least as a musician.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's trying to all the stuff we're talking about, all these emotions and things that go with playing live music, and all of these pitfalls. At the end of the day, it's really about preparing, just overall as a musicianship, but also preparing for whatever gig you're playing, and then just staying out of the way. Having faith in the machinery, right? And knowing that it's not going to suck.
Yeah.
And being somewhat free in that knowledge, it's not going to suck. And the overwhelming odds are it's going to be really good. You're going to play really well. And you're going to really bring something that's really going to help this be a cool time. Even if it's playing a wedding.
Yeah.
I've played some banger weddings, man, where they've been like rock concerts, man, where there's been 400, 20 somethings smushed up on the stage to watch a bunch of us old guys play, like, we're playing like Usher and Journey and Garth Brooks, and they know, and they're just like in the moment. And it's like, it's really, it took me a long time to not be dismissive of something because it's a wedding.
As you said, staying out of the way, I immediately thought, and most of the time that means staying out of your own way, right? Because just getting out of your head, and I'll just say that for me, I drank a lot because I couldn't get out of my head about imposter syndrome, insecurity, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it fueled all of that. And age and perspective and all of that leading up to saying what I am is enough, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to apologize for what I am and what I'm not, and it's what a liberating feeling it is to get out of your own way about those things.
Yeah, that's there's this, people talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan as just closing his eyes and just channeling, like the music's, it's floating around us. And I'm not a big hippy dippy Zen, kind of guy, but I think there's, I think there's a lot of truth in that, that is maybe a kind of a figurative way of looking at it, but staying out of your own way. And I tell you, man, for anybody out there, but younger dudes listening, when I stopped drinking on gigs, when I was younger, I had to I had to constantly be drinking, smoke a little weed or whatever. And when I stopped doing that, it was one of the two most liberating things that happened to me. The other one was when I got married. When I got married, and all of a sudden it's like I didn't realize how much you'll edit this out, right? I didn't realize how much effort I was putting on just trying to line up different different female companions during a gig. And once that was no longer an option, it was like, wow, I can just like focus on playing music. And I think this is probably also around the time wasn't long after that I stopped drinking during gigs. You know, I might like maybe now I might have a beer maybe once or twice a year. I'll have like a Bud Light, like one.
Yeah.
But like that feeling of like getting inebriated on stage is like totally contrary to making music. At least it is for me, you know?
Yeah.
You know what else I did? And I can say this now because I'm no longer affiliated. When I was playing with one of Zach Brown's artists, remember Sonia Lee?
Yeah.
And we did a lot of gigs opening for Zach, you know, playing like really big, you know, big places. And this one time, Zach, we had a little meeting before, and Zach was talking to all of us, like the opening band and, you know, his guys, about like no drinking at all on stage, and no drinking before the gig. You can drink all you want after the gig, but none before. And I think I had a beer just out of spite, because I don't need this fucking guy telling me I'm a grown man. I don't need you telling me when to drink or not. So I think I had a beer like in a paper cup or something like that, just to, you know.
I do remember you being also the person that would go out of your way to make sure your tux was as wrinkled as possible.
Oh man. Oh,
just to stick it to the man, right?
Yeah, and really, how I think of that stuff now, and I think it's kind of funny. But I've been thankfully I haven't been a band leader that many times. But it's like, God, if I was a band leader, I would have fired me right on the spot. You know, just thinking about it, it's like, dude, what's wrong? And I still haven't. I haven't had my tux hasn't been dry cleaned in a couple of years, but I can count on one hand the number of times I've worn it in the past couple of years.
Thank goodness.
Praise the Lord.
Man. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's funny with all of these gigs and all of these great people, you know, definitely including yourself, these great people, you know, bandmates and artists I've played for. And it was funny how we're sitting here talking about all these things, and we have, you know, we have our little issues, which are very real. I don't mean to say little issues to be dismissive, but we've both dealt with, as have almost all of our brethren dealt with all of these things and then some. But man, I mean, looking back at all of, you know, time heals a lot of things, and you can always look back on things once the smoke clears and realize, wow, that was really a cool moment. That was a cool time. And looking back on just all of the great music that I've been able to play, and really, I mean, I turned 60 this year, and I'm practicing over since COVID. I'm playing guitar and practicing and stuff as much as I did when I was young. And this isn't like, I truly believe like, yeah, definitely the best is still ahead, you know, as a musician. Yeah. I mean, I truly believe that. If I didn't, I'm not sure. I think if I didn't believe that, I don't know. I mean, I would still play, and I think I would still like playing, but I don't think, that would be, I think that's tough for any, God, I hate using the word artist because it sounds so pretentious, but you know, if you don't believe your best days are ahead, I think there's a part of you, an integral part that's going to be kind of missing.
Steve, I can't thank you enough, man, for spending some time hanging out with me and just reminiscing and talking like a couple of old jaded farts that we are now about the music industry. And No, just this amazing opportunity that we've both been given to get to play music with people, for people. It's a pretty amazing gift that we've both been given to get to do that. So, man, I've missed you, and it's been so good to catch up. So thanks for being here today.
Man, I was so psyched when you thought of me for this, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. And man, I think I told you I went and I listened to some of your other interviews, and I was just like, oh man, okay, this is big time. Like when I saw Victor Krauss, because I got to do a session with Victor Krauss in Nashville several years ago. Super nice guy, and of course, Good Dog, Happy Man is like that album is the album. People talk about, Desert Island albums. I mean, it's really between Stravinsky's Firebird and Good Dog, Happy Man. I mean, those are like the two contenders for that title, just incredible. Or Mike Seal.
Mike Seal. Yeah.
And
your name came up we were talking about you on there, funny enough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I mostly when I listen to podcasts or music, it's almost exclusively when I go to bed. Mm-hmm. I need to be hearing something. So sometimes I'll, a lot of times, it might take me 20 times to get through a podcast, and then I have to get back to where I was. But yeah, I remember listening to some of it and then falling asleep again, because it was 4 a.m, not having anything to do with it. And then I got up and I was going to take a shower or something. I put it back on, and then first thing I heard was my name, and I'm thinking, yeah. But yeah, I just, when I saw Mike Seal's name, I'm thinking, my first thought was yeah, Brad, I haven't seen Brad in a long time. He must be he must be mixing me up with somebody else. Cause Mike Seal is one of the freaking greatest guitar players on the planet. Yeah. And I'm just I'm a good guitar player, but I'm just a working stiff, man.
Oh, Stop it. I love you, Steve, man. Thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, I love you too, Brad. This has been really fun, man.